Are we recording? Is this thing on?
Yes, it is. Welcome to RevOps 500, where we invite the world's top marketers to answer the tough questions facing growing organizations.
Ooh, sounds important.
I'm Sajeel Qureshi.
And I'm Gil Bates. Join us as we dive deep into the world of RevOps.
We'll be learning strategies and expertise from firsthand experience. RevOps 500 is sponsored by Computan. They provide technical and development expertise to growth-focused marketing teams.
Let's get started.
Another episode of RevOps 500 where we interview some of the world's greatest B2B marketers there is, and today is no different. I've got Christopher Nault on with us. He heads up growth, one of the hottest HubSpot partner agencies you'll see online or anywhere else for that matter. He's at Growth now. He was at Apollo before that. He's done lots of different stuff over his illustrious marketing career. Chris,
Thanks.
Welcome to RevOps 500, man.
Thank you. I do want to clarify, I've never worked at Apollo. I'm an advocate. We've got Daniel, the former VP of community, on my podcast last week. I'll share the episode with you, but I'm on their sales advisory. I was like maybe one of their first 5, and I'm on their customer advisory board. I've
Gotcha.
had a lot of fun being able to work on the product side.
Gotcha. Yeah, and makes sense. Hey, you're one of them because you're a user and you're part of the Apollo family, right? That's kind of the way to look at it.
Yeah, big fan of that. The whole family of sales enablement tools.
Absolutely.
HubSpot.
All right, so Chris
and Apollo. Anyway,
all right,
I digress.
Chris, what is one RevOps myth you can share with our listeners, Chris?
I think the RevOps myth is that it's not that complicated. To me, RevOps is really just putting the systems and identifying and putting in the systems in place to see the work that you're doing and give you the ability to adjust variables. That's it. It doesn't need to be anything more, and it's certainly not less than that. So you need a lot of business acumen, I think, to be a true RevOps person. No amount of certs is going to give you what you need. It's true experience. That's my 2 cents. It's not easy. It's the same way you get to the top of the mountain, one step at a time. And the people I've seen that are best at it are the ones that have applied business acumen to not one niche industry, but several. There's so much logic in process that it defies industrial barriers in most cases.
And obviously that kind of means that having business acumen, so understanding that a lot of businesses have the same mechanics, but they also have their differences too. I mean, like, a restaurant and a bank, they still have people coming in and talking and whatever, and there's still a customer support or customer success in person, but they still have very different, things. There's a chef back there, there's cooks back there, there's nothing like that in a bank, but they still have the same business acumen, still somewhat relative there, right?
Yeah, there's a front of house, the sales, marketing, and server size, and then there's the back house, usually the production. So I think, in your bank and restaurant example, to a layman, a normal person, yeah, they're incredibly different businesses. But to me, when I look at, I can see the overlap immediately. And it's like that all over the place. And I've been very fortunate in, 20 years to have owned a marketing agency. I started when I was 19. Started young. I had a good group of friends. We all started companies fresh not even out of college. We were in college. And so I've just been very fortunate to work with huge global brands, hundreds of much smaller companies, and everything in between.
So yeah, let's talk about that. So what's harder? Is it harder to implement, like, sales enablement, RevOps sort of initiatives at a smaller outfit or at one of these bigger outfits that you've been working at or helping out?
I certainly think it's harder with smaller. And I think a lot of it has to do with knowledge, expectation, resource allocation. And, when you're dealing with a smaller org, anything under a couple of million, it's every dollar counts. You get a little bit more leeway with larger organizations. Of course, you have to move the needle more. But again, if you're doing processes and it's incremental, that's fine. But with small organizations, there's just a lot of pressure, and typically paired with not the budget to hire the best in the business. So you're dealing that's how I cut my teeth, though. I wasn't the most expensive company for many years. And we used a positive attitude and a growth mindset to overcome a lot of the the difficult things, and we didn't quite have the level of Google that we have today in resources. We certainly didn't have ChatGPT for the first 19 years of my career. So now more people have more access to resources, but there's still that level of expectation and acumen that's a really, really huge hurdle when you're dealing with smaller organizations.
And what about technology? I mean, doesn't like a smaller org have less access to technology just because they don't have the budget to buy all sorts of shiny tools and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think we're just also so fortunate to, I mean, you and I are both in this HubSpot ecosystem. And one of the things that I truly value in my partnership with HubSpot is the amount of resource allocation they provide to small businesses. I sit on several nonprofits. I've helped grow a few. I've owned and own several small companies outside of growth. And so every single organization I've touched using a tool like HubSpot free or starter, if you're under, I don't know, a couple $100,000, there's so much stuff you can do with those tools and pay practically nothing. And I'm not saying HubSpot is the only tool in the universe, but it's really good a lot of the time. So yes, you can't get all the cool tools, but you honestly don't really need them for smaller organizations. Automation, you just got to do the work, you know?
And so when keeping that in mind, like what kind of I guess let's talk about growth for a bit. Like what sort of problems or challenges keep you up at night, if they do? I mean, what keeps you up at night technically? You know, from an implementation perspective, what sort of battles are you fighting these days over there?
So to me, it's not process has never kept me up at night. Again, I
Right.
started early, so I built, tough skin for it, both at like growth as a company and for our client. So it's never really a process thing. My first mentor was an uncle of mine, and he taught me at 16, the thing that kept him up at night is people. And that's what keeps me up at night. It's really a people thing, not a process thing. I love the robots. They can't talk back.
But they got bad jokes though, right? I mean, the people got bad jokes.
The worst. I know Darvesh is like, he's on a mission. Good luck, dude. That's nuance is a hard thing to teach a robot.
So when it comes to people, like what exactly is it? If it's not the technology, if it's the people that keep you up, what about it? Is it that they don't understand? It's like the blocking and tackling, getting them to buy in. Is it like what kind of problems you got?
I think for me, the biggest problem is transparency. And like you'll hear me say expectation a lot, but I for better or worse, come into everything with like 100% myself. And if I say I'm going to do something or I have an intent, there's a level of follow through there. And I'm not saying like my biggest problem is bad people. It's the thing that keeps me up at night is how do I help this person accelerate earlier in my career with different team members? I am doing all these things and they are saying they are doing all these things. And when A and B is done, it equals C, but A and B doesn't seem to be happening because it's not C that's being produced. It took me a long time to realize when you're growing a company, the people that you hire are really not as invested in the outcome as you are, especially earlier in the career. But I think, again, like positive attitude and staying the course and coming from a place of authenticity and transparency. Like I'm a human too. I make mistakes, but I work hard and I really go the extra mile for our customers and friends and associates. So anybody that knows me pretty much knows I'm gonna get it done.
Okay, so those sorts of things. It's not so much technology.
Yeah.
And even when it comes to RevOps, do you feel like it's the people who kind of muddy the water then, and not so much like just getting the data to sync or the process alignment is the thing, is getting people actually to stick to those processes, or what is it?
It's just, I think the vetting to put the right people in the right role is a real challenge as a leader. I'm not like a big sports guy, but I learned that Bill Belichick was the coach of the New England Patriots for a very long time. Yeah. And I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that he had a knack for putting people that seemed to be really good in one role. He had a vision where he'd move them into different roles and really see them flourish. I think putting the right person in a RevOps position can be tricky. They may have the stats, they may have the resume, but where they are in their game in their career, are they ready for that position is really difficult. So thorough expectations, really good service management, enabling them to be successful, and then like clear boundaries to identify when they are off course or if they're flourishing too.
All right, so that makes some sense. I'm going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about Chris in the past. I know you went to Central Florida, right? And you were a rugby guy back then.
Yes.
Is that right?
Very proud.
So,
Yeah.
So rugby's an organization. Rugby team's like an organization. You got people in different positions and they're doing different stuff. How do you now? Of course, how would you implement something like a RevOps sort of strategy on a rugby team? Obviously, there's no money involved necessarily, but how do you? There's people, processes, and activities, right?
Right. Well, I honestly think rugby is a fantastic way to look at running a business and working as a team. So at Growth, there are no other rugby players. At least that is no at Growth. It's just me. So, but thankfully, too many rugby players in the room can get a little crazy. But the big thing here in rugby and sports like this, maybe there's others, I'm just ignorant, but everyone understands that you may have a position, but the ball is live and the game is changing all the time. So you have to trust one another. You have to hold each other accountable in a healthy way. And even though your position might be the tiny guy on the outside to run it in, you may get sucked in the middle. You may have to pick up the ball. You may have to make a tackle that you don't normally do. You've been coached and trained, and you have a team that will support you if and when you make a mistake. But you've got to play together. And so at Growth, the feedback I've received most recently, kind of across the board from this team that we've assembled, is there's a level of communication and trust that everyone talks about, like, oh, company culture, I'm going to make a post about it. But I think what we've been able to do is actually build that here. And it's not easy. But I am incredibly thankful to have found some real beast on our rugby team at Growth.
And okay, so let's talk about that now and tie it into RevOps. So you're saying that, look, on a rugby team, it's just like a business. You got people in different positions who have to trust one another. But yeah, sometimes you've got to pull rank or go rogue, and maybe if you're in customer success, you've got to get in and help the marketer out a little bit, or the sales has to help support a little bit, because it's all doing with the one customer, and you're spitting that flywheel, as they call it in our world. So I mean, when you come to like, how do you, and then you go back to, you said people are your main, sleep takers. So yeah. I mean, like how do you find those people who just say, look, I don't care. I'm positionless. I'll play any position to help us win.
Well, there's certainly positions, right? So like, just to keep this rugby analogy like loose, service, sales, marketing is really like our focus, right? These three areas. Yes. So you got the huge guys, let's say they're sales. You got the medium team members, let's say they're marketing, and we've got the fast and swift team members. We'll say that they're service, right? Yeah. If there's an example where we're servicing a customer, they feel that they had been misled, or there's like a conflict, the customer service team is able to look back at the communication, like what marketing did these people see that led to maybe this? Okay, let's find the Fathom recordings and see what sales was doing. And then let's all get together and have like an honest conversation and see if what is happening is valid. And then if so, like treat the problem accordingly. But if it's invalid, at least be able to represent that information. And again, I am finding as Growth grows through our booming through our 20th person here soon, it's not as common as I would have thought to have customer service, marketing, salespeople engaging in the way that our team does. And I'm very proud of it. And I hope that one of the passive things that I can do while I grow myself as, I don't know, a thought leader or whatever, is teach those skills to other people so that way they can have happy, healthy teams that are flourishing under them as well.
With happy customers too.
Love a happy customer. Like, we are very service oriented.
Okay, so we've talked to Christopher in the present. We went back in time. Now let's go in the future. What do you what do you see? What do you see happening with RevOps in the next little while? What's your take?
Well, I think with the access to tools and resources, and RevOps as I don't know if you'd call it a mindset or a practice, maybe we'll call it a practice, as the practice of RevOps continues to mature, and so do the tools around it, I think the expectation will be that you still need to invest in humans, very much so, and the output may be higher in a RevOps person 5 to 10 years from now than now, simply because of the tools and functions that they have. But it's still very much a needed process. So maybe on like a very large org, you may need several people, maybe even a small team of 10. I think that number will slowly get reduced in similar fashion to marketers and salespeople in general. Just the manual work of things is reducing.
So the continual reduction of manual work amongst RevOps people, that's what you think. And then, but you're also saying that you will need different kinds of RevOps people on your staff to probably just do more forward thinking, real brain work. Is that kind of how you're seeing it?
Yeah. Katrina Horn, who's our director of service and growth, really puts it really well, having intentional human touch points. So RevOps people are still going to need to be there. There's the, what are we trying to accomplish? Which leads to the RevOps. Here's the systems and the levers that we can place, so that way we can track and we can make those incremental changes. At least today, humans are better at subjective analyzation than computers, because it's not all apples to apples. And maybe that will change in the future. It's hard for me to see that happening, but I also don't want to be ignorant.
Yeah. So let's talk about like a hair salon. Okay. Maybe a RevOps function now is after a month, say, hey, time to get a haircut, right? And then that automatically gets a reminder, gets sent to an email box. Maybe now in the future, it'd be like a human says, hey, this guy needs to get a haircut in a month. So maybe why don't you go talk to him or personally, or, just give him a call or, do whatever, or send him like an automated handwritten note, something like that, just to kind of see how it can be optimized, or just get like a, better, just give it a response, like a better response for the business, something like that.
100%. I mean, the situation you describe already exists, right? Like we know the steps of recurring service and customer engagement. That playbook already exists, but companies are still growing and existing. So the people to implement those are always going to be needed. But certainly there's people that implement those systems and then just copy and paste. And then there's other ones that sprinkle a little of maybe for the hair salon example, a little bit of the brand. Let's say I'm kind of like a funky, trendy shop. Maybe the message that I send this person is a little bit more geared toward the brand than okay, technically this checks the customer response box, so the job is done. We lean more towards the first example where we want to add a little bit of the brand spice into the mix.
Or you personalize it. You style the hair, then you put in the notes afterwards. Hey, this guy is a fan of this rock band, or this one likes this sport or this movie, and then you put it in there, and all of a sudden you can use that to draw out your personal invite for the cut 6 weeks in the future, something like that.
I mean, personalization opens up a really fun Pandora's box of conversation, because like what is appropriate personalization versus maybe like what is inappropriate. I saw someone recently post on LinkedIn, like talking about how great clay is, which is cool. But the example was, look at this cool email this robot wrote. And it's like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Data scrape. Saw that, Jessica said this thing and Ryan said this thing on the internet. Very creepy way to approach a conversation, right? Yeah. But then the creepiest part was like, and then, Chris said that you were going to close this huge deal on LinkedIn. Never do that, people. So PS is Chili's near insert office address still a happening place, because you can go there to get margaritas to celebrate that deal closing. I was like, what? Like, very weird. So I would say that personalization, good. Some personalization, bad. Again, nuance. How do we teach a robot that?
Yes.
I would say stop being creepy, and then they have to go and figure out what creepy means.
That's a tough one still for the robots to
but if not to like switch into outbound, but if you're trying to talk to somebody, I would know not to bring up Chili's.
Yeah.
And I would also know not to bring up Jessica. Like maybe they don't even know each other. That is very
Yeah.
weird. So
Maybe Jessica we used to work at Chili's. Now she doesn't work there. She works at Applebee's now. You never know, right?
right, but if we're talking about the hair salon, and let's say the hair salon is
Yeah.
like very alcohol forward, and so like when you get your first haircut, they're like, "What's your favorite drink?" Because we want to make sure that you have it when you get your haircut. And I say margarita, and then in my said, "Hey, your margarita is ready. When you're ready to get your haircut, click here to book your next appointment." I'd be like, "I do need a margarita right now. That's perfect." And that kind of personalization is awesome. But now it's 9:31 a.m. and I want a margarita.
Yeah, I mean, like, but it's got to be done with the right touch, with the right elegance, flair. You know, with not too much, too creepy, as you're saying. That's what we got
Right.
to work
And
on
I,
in the future, I guess.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe there is I'm just a rugby guy, right? So like I can't see the future. I don't know these crazy tools. People like you and everybody at Growth are all so much smarter than I am. I adapt to the changing scenarios. And so I'll be reading TechCrunch and my Google News and keeping my eye out for the latest and greatest. And then I'll play with it and see if it's worth adapting and bringing into our program so we can help our customers. Most things are not.
Most things are not. So, like, what makes you say that most things are not worth bringing into your mix to help with other customers?
Well, there's lots of things to consider when we partner with software companies. One is, what is their track record for success and service, right? So obviously HubSpot crushes it. Apollo, improving. But they've got a really strong product roadmap, both of them, for what's in the future. What are they building? How are they making the thing that you buy today more valuable tomorrow? A third one is like, what are the resources around helping not just like the consultancy that's implementing and driving success, but to the individual user at the company? What are those resources that are available to help them thrive? A lot of cool tools, not a lot of cool tools that also have vast resources. So like maybe a super nerd will figure out how to use it, but everybody else is kind of left dumbfounded. That can be a problem. When I talk about product roadmap too, it's really important to understand that from my perspective, again, narrow keyhole in the universe, a software company that is looking to the future may be more customer minded. And I need to know that the time I invest when we touch a software, we know it inside and out. So I need to have trust in the software that we partner with, that they're going to be around in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years. So that way I don't need to sell another tool to replace a tool. And with Apollo and HubSpot, we've been very fortunate. We haven't needed another alternative. Alternatives are there. But just yesterday, one of our ABM clients came to me with a problem I've never had before. They are a global company, over $500 million. And our ABM program created so much like pipeline of good deals. We crashed their sales team. They've got 12 salespeople and there's too much volume. So now we have to go into revenue operations and look at we're going to audit their sales team, their process, and find ways to reduce friction and increase value. So that way they can basically have more conversations and more tighter conversations faster. Thankfully with HubSpot, we can solve many, many of those problems.
That's such an interesting problem to have. You wouldn't think of like RevOps implementation being the catalyst for demand gen that then all of a sudden makes salespeople too busy. I don't
I
hear
think
that
it's a
very
unique
often.
situation. They are they make things and they sell things, right? And they have a big direct to consumer piece, but they
I
have
see.
built this B2B piece. And so they built it and then they hired growth to execute. We'll call it a dongle, to sell dongles
Sure.
to
Yeah.
companies that need dongles. They just had
Yeah.
they'd always gone through distributors. And so their salespeople are distributor adjacent salespeople. So these types of relationships are just a little bit different. So
Yeah.
I love this customer. They've been with us for years, love seeing them grow. But I generally was like, this is a problem I've never had before,
Yeah.
but I love it. We will find a
Yeah.
solution.
That's interesting. I mean, it's a testament to what you guys do at Growth. I mean, like, what, where should people go to find more about you and about Growth and the company
Oh,
itself?
I mean, I think LinkedIn, obviously our website. I'm like, this is new. We've got a YouTube channel. Every week we knock out we know time is valuable. So we take something that needs focus, a micro lesson, if you will. And every week we do a live recording of a 20-minute micro lesson. ABM, how to send better emails, how to pass creative blocks with Mark Hans. We had some really cool softwares on there. So we put all that up on YouTube. I record thoughts all the time and throw them up on LinkedIn. Think I'm pretty Googleable now.
That's usually the best way to get a hold of people anyways nowadays. LinkedIn, websites, YouTube. I mean, those are the tools.
Or inbound, bumping into each other for the
Yeah,
first time.
that's another thing.
Right?
That's another
Inbound's
thing.
a good
That's
thing.
another thing.
Shameless plug.
Inbound. There you go. Shameless plug to our friends at HubSpot in the inbound event there. So look, Chris, this was a lot of fun just to jam with you on this stuff. I mean, we talked rugby, we talked a little bit of hair salons. I mean, you never go for haircuts. I shouldn't be going for haircuts. We talked about
It's been a while.
Yeah. We ran the gamut. I mean, that's what we wanted to do, and I appreciate you jamming with me today on it.
My pleasure, man. You're great. I've really enjoyed knowing you. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, of course. What do you got?
So we're talking about RevOps and team management, but you have done something that we are just like on the precipice of getting into, and that is managing remote teams all over the world. And when we've tried to do that, it's difficult because there's things besides, here's a document, do these things that are involved, right? How do you, from the other side of the world, first question is, how do you find the right talent? What's one of your tricks to finding a great RevOps person for your team, Computan?
Well, I mean, Chris, what we do is we have a very good HR team that helps us, scour the globe, like that with resumes, and they shortlist very good, and then it comes down to interviews and just talking to a lot of people, and honestly, just kind of shortlisting, having little hoops that people have to jump through to kind of figure out what kind of a problem solver they are in the interview, that kind of stuff like that. But normally, it just comes down to having the right people, screening the talent. And there's some people who have an eye for talent, some people don't. Luckily on our team, we've got a couple of people who are very good at identifying talent. And that's usually the biggest when it comes to hiring the right person. And then even then, sometimes we don't hire for talent. You just hire for people who have like the raw ability. So let's say let's go back to rugby. Maybe someone's never played rugby before, but they've got the speed, they got the height, or they got the strength, and you can teach them
the soft skills
the soft
to be
skills,
successful.
exactly. Yeah, and then you just teach them the skills that they don't have, and you've got the people who can, you've got the world-renowned coaches who can teach them those little nuances of the game. But you can't teach like someone's ability to have apathy, or to to go the extra mile, or to be detail oriented. Those things, if they come with that stuff, and they, like you said, it's like people who can care a lot. Like you can't teach it, but you can certainly measure it. If you can say, look, that person cares a lot, and they have enough raw skill, that's something you want to have on your team, right? Like, so we just try to do it that way.
I thank you. And I've got a follow-up question.
Yeah, go for it.
You've got these team members. You're all over the world.
Yeah.
How do you create a company culture that builds intercommunication, allows people to make mistakes and move forward? How do you do it? You're like elbow drop, or is it, do you do like a bunch of calls? Have you placed neurochips into everyone's head so everyone's on one emotional spectrum? How do you do it?
Yeah, so the first thing is we do the neurochip installation at 2 months after onboarding. Sarcasm intended, but then it's a thing, right? You when it comes to it's a lot of it is in the evaluation and recruiting of people. Like, and it's not to say that we have good people, bad people. We just have people who we know that are kind of quote unquote our people, right? Like, okay, this person is a little bit, I don't know what it is. I say most of the people on our team, they have a certain amount of like they're certainly a little bit neurotic, and they have a little bit of OCD, and they have a little bit of, they're on a spectrum of a certain level, and okay, these people will do really good here, right? So,
yeah.
So and you just kind of know what your vibe is at your place, and once you know what that is, you can kind of, when you go to an interview, you can just know, okay, this person will survive, this person will be valued, this person will do well, this other type of person might not be what we need, or maybe what we need in a different kind of, like the marketers maybe don't think like the developers do. And that's okay, because all the marketers, that team has their own little identity to them, or the QC team member, like the testers, they have their own identity to them, which is totally different than someone who's coding integrations in HubSpot all the time. But you just know that what team that you're kind of looking for, and what their vibe is, and usually the team leaders are involved in the selection of their people, so it's a very closely knit group. And yeah, then once we install the chip, then people just they seem to they just seem to kind of they just seem to kind of work together. It's like cookies and cream. Just kind of it kind of
I
works.
love
But
it,
yeah, we
man.
spend a lot of time just evaluating people, talking, and sometimes it takes us longer to hire than others. But that's really what it is. And then but when we do hire them, we try and keep them as long as humanly possible, because it's kind of like we got to this phase of probably you probably see the same thing, right? Where there's two types of bad emails you can receive as the owner of growth, right? One is you lost a customer, which is a terrible email. But the worst email is if you lost one of your 20 best people, right? Like one of your best people just say, hey, I'm moving on to something else. You probably hate that email more than you hate the lost customer one, right? Because it takes you longer to find that person again than it would to find that customer again. Is that right? Or
It is right. I think that's one of my challenges in my role today is to have a place that keeps people, and to create a space where if they were, if they were considering another role, I might want to know why. The people that have departed growth so far have all left for the right reasons. This was not the place for them, or they're moving on to their career. But like right now, we're really centered on finding not saying like you need to be here forever, but certainly during the interview process, we're looking for people that are looking to stay one place so we can all grow. We're in a really fun place right now as a company and in the ecosystem that we're in. I would be heartbroken if I received that email from everybody. I'd probably be surprised right now because we're all very actively communicating, but don't want to nip that in the butt. So knock on wood.
and you'd be more dreading that email than the customer saying, hey, you know what, I'm moving on to a different partner, agency, whatever. Because you find those ones, but to find people that you vibe with is very, very hard. And so in our company, and probably yours, you spend a lot of time just talking to people, seeing does this person, is it the right fit? Is it not the right fit? Is it the right position? Do they have the right skills that we're looking for? If we're not looking for them, then that's a weakness. But it's hard to find that. That's the main thing. You got to have people who can evaluate, who know your company and know who can work at your company really well. And luckily we've had that. So that's a big piece of it for sure for us.
Yeah, that's people, man. They're tough.
They're tough. They'll put you to sleep. They'll make you sleep well, but they'll keep you up at night too. So,
yes.
In our case, it's both, right? So it's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
Yeah, man. It's good to be in a people business, and it's one of the things I've enjoyed about you. It's obvious that you are a leader that cares. That's not always the case.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm just trying to follow the lead here. We guys like you, they're doing that too. So
that's right. Let's be a force for good, if we will.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's got to be, right? It's crazy. So
I'll take that role.
Hey, well, look. Anyway, Chris, this was a lot of fun. I appreciated you coming on and taking time out of your Wednesday morning here to kind of jam with us. It meant a lot. So thanks again.
We'll see you at Inbound.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of RevOps 500. So thanks for listening, everyone.
And that wraps up another episode of RevOps 500. Thanks for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at RevOps500.com. RevOps 500 is sponsored by CompuCare, providing technical and development expertise to growth-focused marketing teams.